Hey witches, welcome to another Cozy Coven chat. I'm your host, Jenny C. Bell. And if you have been on this wild ride of crystals with me, I want to thank you. I started this podcast really to talk about witchcraft and the journey. And then with my book coming out, I just really wanted to give you some crystal experience and some crystal insight. So it's been a little mini series. It won't always be about crystals. So hopefully you've enjoyed this little series. And in today's podcast, I'm going to be talking about crystal grids and what that means and what that looks like. This is all in prep for my book coming out, Spirit Crystals, Discover Your Crystal Guide for Healing and Empowerment. And I'm super excited. I'm sure you can tell. That's why we're talking about crystal skulls and crystal grids and all kinds of fun things, right? So first of all, I want to say that I do have crystal grids in the book. It's in the last chapter, and I feel they are really suitable for anybody of any kind of experience level of working with crystals. There's actually one for every spirit crystal, but anybody can use them. And today at the end, kind of second part of the podcast, will be a demonstration for those people that are watching on YouTube on how to grid a crystal. So if you are a podcast listener, I thank you. And if you would like to see the second part of this podcast, because I'm not going to leave it here as an audio because you won't be able to see what I'm talking about, hop on over to YouTube. There will be a chapter for when the second part starts, and you can just go ahead and watch that part. My YouTube is Chats with Jenny, right? So, or you can look up Healing with Jenny. Either one, you'll find my YouTube, and I'll be able to show you what I'm talking about with grids. A crystal grid is a shape or a photo or a picture or a space that you use crystals to create some kind of meaning for. So a crystal grid, really, it's witchcraft. Like, this is why I say the new age and the metaphysical really meet a lot of times with witchcraft. It is a spell. A crystal grid is a spell with crystals. It is very similar to using a sigil or sigil, however you want to pronounce it, or using a rune to enhance your spell work. It really is a crystal spell in essence. So what do you need to do a grid? You need a shape, and you don't always have to have the shape, but I think it's nice. They make crystal grid mats, and you can print them or you can buy them. Etsy's a good place that has a lot of them. You can use photos or tarot cards for gridding. You will also need crystals for the gridding. You can add herbs, charms, seashells, plants, all kinds of things to the grids. You don't even have to use crystals. I know, you could use anything, any kind of little trinket that works for your spell work. So really the possibility of working with grids are endless. It's like a spell. Everybody has their own method. You can use it your own way. You can grid your home. You can grid your land. You can grid a bedroom. You can grid your ritual circle. You can have a grid up always and just constantly kind of clean and tend to it. You can have a grid up sometimes. Like, one of my favorite things to do is do a grid on a new moon and then change it or release it on the full moon. You can do it with like anything, and it's for any purpose. You decide, just like in a spell, you decide the intention and the purpose of the grid before you create the grid with presence and intention. And then the grid does its magic, and then you thank it and you release it. It's really like a spell jar. It's really just like, it really is a spell. And so if you go into it thinking in the terms of witchcraft and a spell as a witch, it'll be so much easier to do. And you don't have to get caught up in like everybody else's rules about grid making, because there's I read books sometimes and I'm like, I don't think we need to do that. Like, I don't find that helpful. But it's really, again, it's up to the person. So some people really have like these strict rules about it. And some people give their crystal grids Reiki or energy. Some people use like a wand to activate it, very witchy. You can put crystal grids around things. In the latest Tea Witches book, where she talks about crystals and crystal brews, she does that. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Highly recommend. We've had her on the show. So there really is kind of this endless possibility. And so if you want to, you can do a search and you can look up crystal grids and get examples. But I really highly, again, I'm always about the intuition. I really highly recommend using your own intuition when it comes to how you place the crystals, what shapes you're going to put it in, what the purpose is. They're really fun and they're really beautiful. It's a really beautiful thing to have on your altar, to get to visit every day and like give energy to and look at. The spell becomes a living spell and it just feels peaceful. They're very much like a mandala where they're relaxing to look at. So yeah, what you would need, like I said, is the shape, and you can look into sacred geometry, which is beautiful. There's some beautiful sacred geometry. I really like Flower of Life. I like Metatron's Cube. Those are two that I think can work for pretty much any kind of spell. You can definitely look those up or look into them. What kind of crystals work best? You know, I'm going to say quartz family, I think, personally. But again, like I said, you can use charms, you can use plants, you can use flowers. I mean, I make flower grids all the time as part of my outdoor altar. Totally a possibility. You can mix and you can match. It's fun. That's something I think is so important, is that witchcraft is fun. And I think in playful. And crystals are beautiful and fun and playful. It's such a perfect little marriage. So without further ado, we're going to jump into the demonstration part of this. And so if you're listening, thank you for listening. Please go over to YouTube so you can see how to put some grids together. I would love for you to do that. But until then, thank you. Okay, the first kind of grid I want to show you is just like I said, using sacred geometry. So this is a Metatron's Cube. It's a series of circles and lines and is said to be sacred to Archangel Metatron, who's the angel of our time, and is also helpful for any kind of transmutation, some kind of change. Really, it's an overall good spell. Like, it's just, you can use this spell with any kind of intention, and you can print these out, like I said, or you can, you know, have them, this one's printed on cloth. You can not use sacred geometry, so I'll show that in a moment. But you would open sacred space, do a ritual circle, cleanse the space, cleanse the crystals, light a candle, maybe you're doing a spell to go with this grid and this intention, and then you would have all your tools with you, and you would just start to place them with intention. So I want to show different things you can use. So I have a crystal mala. And so if you have like a crystal necklace, maybe you want to place it all around. And you want to use, like I said, you can use seashells. Maybe you want to use a charm. This is a crystal for unlocking peace, or a grid for unlocking peace, right? And you're using all this purple amethyst to bring in transmutation and alchemy, right? And I like to have a piece of clear quartz in every grid I use. I feel it helps to amplify, even if I'm not using it in any other part. But that's just personal, and you'll get your personal preferences as you go. As you can see, I'm not trying to make this like trying to touch the crystal to every single place that the lines touch. I've kind of focused on the circles. Does that mean that's the only way to do it? No. And I'm using a variety of things. I'm using crystals. You could open a tea bag and add tea. You can add rose petals. You can add flowers, right? It's really intuitive. It's really open. And I want you to understand that there's no wrong way. If you feel like an energy and you feel good about what you've done, then it's good. Okay, next I want to show you how to do a grid with no shape. So there's not a shape here, sacred geometry for me to work with. I just kind of flipped my cloth over. And I'm going to make the shape, right? So again, I might want to use my mala. And maybe I'm trying to bring in love. And if I was, I'd probably be using rose quartz, but we have the we have the amethyst here. And by the way, these are beads. And so they're all relatively the same size, and that's really helpful for using in grids, is using beads that from a necklace or bracelet that you decided you don't actually want to wear, but you want the crystals, right? And so these don't have to be complicated, right? A heart is an easy, simple shape, but it has such a deep meaning in our psyche, in our society. It doesn't have to be sacred geometry. It can be an intuitive shape. Like if it could just be, you kind of get into it, and when you look back, it's a shape maybe you've never heard of or seen, but it felt right to you in the moment. It felt like this was the shape of the spell, because it's really, like I said, it's a spell. So you're giving shape to a spell, you're giving shape to an intention or to an energy. And so it's okay for it to look like something you've never seen before, right? Maybe it just has its own kind of look, or maybe when you're done, you're like, oh, it kind of looks like an animal, or it looks like this. But at the time, this is what felt right to you. And it just feels good. You can put a candle here, and that's what you want. It really is so playful and so open. I hope that really comes across. And the last type of grid I want to show you, I've already shared in our Coven, is probably the easiest way to start, is to get a little bottle of these chipped crystals. They're very inexpensive. I have Tiger's Eye, and I have the Strength card from the tarot. And so you can use tarot or oracle cards, or a picture or an image, and you get your chipped crystal, and you have already cleansed and opened sacred space, and you have your intention. You can even write your intention down. That's the other thing, is you can write your intention down and put it under the grid, or even grid the words. I mean, honestly, it's endless. And with these little crystals, what's nice is they fit onto the card. So with Tiger's Eye, it gives courage, right? So if I'm looking to give courage, I'm going to use the Strength card, because I always feel the lion is giving her courage, right? Anybody that's sitting in peace with the lion is a courageous person. That's just my personal view, right? And so you can have your own intuitive kind of feeling, and you just can it's almost like coloring in a coloring book, right? Let the crystals go on the images, go on the image where it feels right, right? You can see I'm decorating her wingtips. And it's really like all of witchcraft. It's just about intention and presence. That's the key, right? And so and I want to maybe put one on her heart to represent my heart for courage. Put one on the lion's third eye, right? It doesn't have to be a shape. This really didn't take on a shape. This is kind of more, like I said, it's almost like coloring in the picture with crystals and letting yourself have the freedom of expression. Crystals help us express ourselves, but crystal grids really are very individual, very therapeutic. They're very meditative. They're mindful. They are like they're a practice, right? And so you allow yourself to take the practice. And if you don't like it, you're like, oh, I don't really like how I put those there. You can fix it. You can do something different, right? Maybe you want to do the four corners, right? Maybe you want to add one big crystal. You want to really amplify strength in your life. I don't know. I just feel like crystals are so forgiving and such a fun kind of aspect of spellcraft. And crystal grids are really the easiest way, I think, for witches to connect with crystals, because if you already get the basics of creating a spell or doing a spell, then you can transfer that into making grids. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast / video demonstration, right? A little different than what I normally do. But thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And thank you for learning as well.